what is an independent watch? What is an independent watch brand? We consider Rolex as an independent watch brand. I mean, they're not part of the big conglomerate, but yet they are a monster of the industry. And they also have a subsidiary brand called Kudoke. So maybe not. But what about a brand like Patek Philippe is a huge player in the industry, major brand. They don't have any other subsidiary brands, they only have one brand, but they make something like 70,000 watches a year. We consider this independent. What about all the Japanese brands like Citizen, Seiko? Of course, I think we can automatically disqualify that because most of them have multiple other brands under their can. But what is an independent brand? What do you think? Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Deployant Show, and today I have both Stanley and Raúl with us. And the topic for the day is really something quite interesting. We're going to talk about independent watches, and each of us are going to make a selection of 3 watches which we think will fit into what we think will be a good entry point for independent watches. And we set the price point at about $20,000. But first, what is an independent watch? What is an independent watch brand? We consider Rolex as an independent watch brand. I mean, they're not part of the big conglomerate, but yet they are a monster of the industry. And they also have a subsidiary brand called Kudoke. So maybe not. But what about a brand like Patek Philippe? Patek Philippe is a huge player in the industry, major brand. They don't have any other subsidiary brands, they only have one brand, but they make something like 70,000 watches a year. Consider this independent. What about all the Japanese brands like Citizen, Seiko? Of course, I think we can automatically disqualify that because most of them have multiple other brands under their can. But what is an independent brand? What do you think, Robin?
So for me, I think most fundamentally speaking, there must be independence in terms of who its shareholders are, right? So technically, if you have a company that is held by a single shareholder or a very small group of shareholders, then there's that independence because you don't really have to take I would say decision making from the principal himself against your groups of shareholders who might have differing views and things like that. So that is one. I think also secondly, to add on to that point, it doesn't fall under any group. Right, so your usual, Richmond, your Swatch group, yeah. As long as it doesn't fall under any of such group, I think that's also something that's important.
So we consider a brand like, for example, Private to be independent now that Private is actually funded by both Joshua and CVC, yep, which is a kind of venture capitalist, and also they have got subsidiary brands now, University and Ballet, which is coming soon. Yep. Would you consider them as independent?
No, I would say they are not really an independent because having stakeholders such as CVC involved, it means that they would have to drive and create shareholders' value. And in a way, that means your principal can't really actually exercise that kind of freedom or decisions because then in that aspect, financial returns is something that they would have to consider. And if they want to produce something that's not financially viable, then that's where the exercise of creativity and the avenue to exercise that is reduced, right, or diminished. So that's, I think, something that is.
What about brands like this and Europe? They are kind of like MBO with some venture capitalists backing them as well. They're kind of like excluded from these major groups. So Patrick Pino and his team actually is still operating in a more independent way, but would you consider them as independent?
I think different, right? Because the brand used to come from a group care. So
but they were independent before. Both Gerard Barreto under Gino Marcaluso and his family, and UN under Ralph Schneider and his family, were both independent watchmakers before. And then they came with the Terry and then now they split again.
Yeah, so that differs the difference, right? So and it's a lot about like if you bring something out and if the impression still sticks, right?
Yeah. So I guess the definition for independent is not really fixed. And I guess for our purposes for today's discussion, we're talking about small guys, maybe making less than 10,000 watches, even smaller per year, where you get to deal with the principal directly, either the principal watchmaker who's getting someone down or the the person who is actually managing the company, making the key decisions, who also controls the finances of the company. And I think this is what we're talking about when we talk about independence. But this is our definition for this particular video. This definition, of course, is by no means final. So tell us what you think about what do you think who should qualify as independent? Should Rolex be independent? Should Patek be independent? Should Chopard be independent? Not that Chopard now has Ferdinand 2, which is another sub-brand. Should Kari Turbillon be independent? Because a lot of people consider him to Kari to be independent, but yet he has got subsidiary brands. He has got his combined manufacturer, which makes watches for other people, and now he's also involved in urban earrings. Would you consider him as an independent brand? What about guys like Gronefeld, which has got Groner, which is the low-end piece that they're offering for sale, or people like Hajime Asauga, which is kind of like the superhero of Japanese independent watchmaking, but yet he's got Groner, who's making quite a lot of watches. Would you consider Bruno or Hajime Asauga as independent? Because now we are kind of like part of a small group.
Right, so Bruno is a lot like a micro brand. So that's what why I feel, as compared to Hajime Asauga, which is
But if you talk about micro, how do you define micro? Cheap watches? Because if you talk about production value, Hajime Asauga is way smaller than Bruno. Yeah. Hajime is making like one watch a year. And so is Gronefeld, they make like 20-30 watches. I don't know what the production number is. But maybe we'll clarify with Bart in the message others, and I'll put it down if you constract us the time. But definitely the Groner is a little bit more relaxed in terms of production, in terms of quality control as well, because they don't use their own independent movement, they use third-party movements.
Yeah, but Groner is a very, very good brand.
Or a brand like Moser, for example, together with Orton, they own Ortons. Together with Ortons, they make fewer than 1,000 watches per year. Do you consider either of these brands as independent? Tell us below, and let's get engaged in this discussion. But to kick off today's episode, let us start with our selection of 3 independent watches each, and we start off with Robin. What's the first choice, Robin?
So for me, the first choice would be the Habring² Erwin Tuxedo edition.
Good choice.
For me, what particularly enthralled me with this Erwin Tuxedo edition, it's the design of it, right? So you have a 38.5 mm timepiece, a dressy one, right? Together with a beautiful sector dial and Breguet numerals, right? And notwithstanding that, the movement, right, is quite interesting as well. So it has a jumping seconds movement. So, for the uninitiated, you might thought, this is a quartz watch, but in actuality, this is a complicated watch because, in order for them to execute the jumping seconds mechanism or complication itself, works have to be done to the movement, right, to create this complication. So it's something that's quite fascinating, and the fact that it's produced by a small outfit, and price, yes.
That's why it's called
Yeah, Richard and the fact that they can price it at, I believe, below $10,000 that's something that's very, very compelling. And for those who have not heard of this brand, I think it's something that's really worth a look at.
And 2 other interesting things about them is that one, they're producing out of Austria,
yes,
which is a non-traditional location for producing watches. I mean, they're German speaking, but they're not exactly in Germany, not in Pforzheim area or in the Glasgow area where most of the watches are being made. And the second one is that the jumping seconds complication, which is the second one, is usually quite an expensive complication. It appears in many more expensive pieces. Watches, like for example, jumping seconds or second one, or in other watches which have featured this complication.
Yes,
so good choice. Good choice. And what about you, Stanley?
I like something a little bit more conventional. Franck Muller. So the Franck Muller FR2 is something that I really, really like. It's something less of a complication, but more towards the design. But I think it's in collaboration with the FR2 brand, which is a streetwear brand. It's founded in Japan. It comes with a very interesting carbon fiber tunnel case. Yeah, and then something a little bit discreet, but not too discreet.
Right?
Yes, it's a dowel with the 2 rabbits enjoying their movements. So I think having it's something that is a playful, fun, but at the same time brings up a slightly more conservative watch due to the tone of piece. And that's what I did. So I really like that.
But there's also the question of whether Franck Muller is independent, because Franck Muller himself as a maison has got many other sound brands as well.
Yeah.
Including related to a brand like Kudoke, which is kind of a related brand because of Ba111od Chapter, and his family is involved in some of the other brands. So that's something which could be interesting as well. But yeah, I think Franck Muller is independent. But as independent store, they are very, very big. They make probably more than 50,000 watches a year.
Yeah. That's my definition, one of them. So yeah, but yours?
Okay, my first pick is something which is a little bit different. And I also, of course, as a disclaimer, I must say that it's actually a brand owned and run by a friend of mine. And this particular brand is called Massena. So William Massena and myself, we go back very long, maybe 25, 28 years as collectors. We've known each other for a very long time. We worked together at Deployant.com for many, many years. And it's a brand, and it's a piece, the piece that I really like from this Massena lab is a collaboration with Raúl Pagès. And what is really interesting is Raúl, who is another person whom I know for quite a long time, because I used to work alongside with him in his atelier. I was the photographer, he was the atelier doing restoration at Reimagined. And he's a person I really respect a lot, and he's a little bit more famous now because he recently won the Louis Vuitton Watch Prize for independent creators, and he's a really intense, really focused, really good watchmaker. And this movement is created by Raúl for Massena, and it's a unique movement made just for them. Of course, the whole movement is not made and assembled by Raúl Pagès to become too expensive, but the design is 100% Raúl Pagès. The work for cutting the bridges and the components are made according to the specifications by partners in Switzerland, and it comes back to Raúl for quality control. Then it goes out to another partner who does assembly. It comes back again to Raúl for final quality control and final checks before it goes out. This one is quite beautiful, and the one that I really like is the latest iteration, which is it's got this really nice dial, and of course the movement, which is basically Raúl Pagès. And if you're looking at Raúl Pagès as an independent brand on its own with Raúl's name on the dial, it's going to cost you close to 100,000 Swiss francs. Okay, so that's my first pick for today. So let's go back to Robin for the second pick.
So for my second pick, that would be the Kudoke 3. So Kudoke is a brand that I was introduced to sometime during the COVID era with the Kudoke 2. So back then I thought the design, right, is pretty interesting, and the finishing all this is actually done quite nicely. You know, when they introduced the Kudoke 3 in more recent times, I think that really takes it up a notch, right? And what particularly was interesting was its hour display, right? So instead of the usual conventional, you know, display, they had I would say a sub dial or cutout, sector dial cutout of sorts, right? Yes. Or on a scale system, right? So that's something that I thought was rather unconventional and pretty interesting. And that's what I like about watches from independent watchmaking kind of a background, right? Where you are able to exercise that sort of creativity when it comes to the designing aspect of it, and you know, basically just exercising that sort of freedom when it comes to designing and creating their watches.
And you also are able to meet directly with Stefan Kudoke and his wife Eve when you buy the watch, rather than, for example, you don't know who made the patek Philippe, even brand complication, you don't even know who the person behind, watchmaker behind. But here you're dealing directly with Stefan and Eve, and you can feel that relationship.
And that's part of the experience, right? Yeah.
Of the independent,
yes.
Working with independent watchmaking. And I had this experience also when I commissioned my the Force University. Where this close relationship and building this bond between the watchmaker and the client and the input that you have. He may not take every single input that you give him, but he listens a little bit and he's trying to make a little bit of changes. That's how we got from 34 millimeters for simplicity to 37 millimeters for simplicity. Okay, let's move on to Stanley's second choice.
The second choice would be a brand that's also very close to me. It is Reimagined.
Okay, well that's interesting because that's a very interesting. Okay, it's a car brand.
Yes, I'm a car guy, right? As everybody knows, right? So, yes, in Tokyo I had a GR86, right? So,
those are really special watches that Reimagined.
Correct. So, they are a retro mod company, Reimagined, and of course, the watch brand is actually another site where it's run by another gentleman called
Marco.
Yes. So what happens is this Reimagined Heritage, right? It's something a little bit more unique. Going back to the Resto Mod team that Reimagined had. They actually brought this restored Nemo stock Klaauw caliber 236 and alright, and they did some magic. Okay, so when they actually did some they redo the movement, they rebuilt the movement in a way, and then of course it has a column wheel and a horizontal clutch, and all cased within a 13.8mm stainless steel case. So I think those are something that I really appreciate, something that you won't really see a lot, especially with this Nemo stock movement in a regular production, on the regular watch.
I'm not really familiar with this one. I'm more familiar with the old other boxes that single impression, and those are the beautiful pieces.
Yes.
Of course, they're on a budget of $3,000, but this one is because it's also based movement.
Depending on the FX rate, because it's so big, right? So you gotta pay 20,300 plus if you can get it at spot rate at today.
Or in the US, you have to pay the tax as well.
Ouch. Okay,
let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. And my second pick, right now, the second pick is again another unconventional choice, but that's the idea of this discussion, is because we want to expose or we want to talk about watches which are not within the normal field of view of a collector, but somewhat in the periphery. So then my second pick is a very unusual pick for a watch person, and this is Leica ZM12. Why Leica ZM12 is quite interesting. We had the fortune of working with Leica for a while, and that is interesting for two reasons. One, the DNA is complete Leica, so it's designed within the Tesla manufacturer and the design concepts that are coming from Leica, which is based on really, really high quality, really high performance, but very simple, very straightforward design. Does whatever it is supposed to do, but yet it doesn't carry anything additional to it. This is the Leica philosophy. And this philosophy is applied then to the watch. And this watch is quite interesting and really interesting because it carries a movement made by none other than Chrono. We've known Jean-François Mojon for many, many years. And in fact, we actually visited Jean-François Mojon recently, and we will show the video soon. And Chrono has been involved in manufacture of many interesting watches made by other independents. He just stays behind the scene, he makes the movements, but yet he does not expose himself as a brand name himself. And he's a kind of a genius in his own right, in his manufacture up the block. He makes, for example, watches for the complicated watches for Hermes.
Like the Tom
Voyager, like the Luna, the Moon watch. He makes watches for MDNF. So the early MDNF were all made with strong movements. He makes watches for HYT, which are kind of the original HYT watches. The first few series, the H1 movement, were made by Mojon. These complicated movements, beautifully finished, and he's well known for that. And at the price in which the Leica is proposing the ZM12, which is about below $10,000 US. I think it's an excellent value proposition for you to gain entry into the world where you can experience what a true independent watchmaker is delivering to the marketplace. So I think it's quite an interesting choice, and the watches are quite nice, very good looking. It fits nice on the wrist. We tried it several times, and it's available in many configurations, many colors. And I think more versions will be available pretty soon as well.
Exactly. So apparently it was a very high watch. Somebody dropped it, and then after that picked it up, it still worked.
That is a Mojon movement, so it has to have good performance, right?
Yes. So I've seen the watch, and apparently it's working perfectly. Yeah, nothing happened. So okay, right.
Let's move on to Robin again.
Yep. So for the third piece that I'm selecting, that will be a collaboration between Sarpaneva as well as a Moomin.
Another interesting and unusual brand.
Yes. So this is taking it from the Nordic angle, right? So for me, what particularly interests me is, how, you know, I would say the things that Sarpaneva does to his timepieces, right? Particularly with the lume, right? As well as his interesting take in terms of the design elements, right? So for this particular collaboration itself, you have the, I would say, the signature Sarpaneva case, which is not like your conventional watch case. So it has a bit of that bottle cap or something like that kind of design. Yes. And then more importantly, the one that caught my attention is the lume, which I think it's something that we don't. Yes, very colorful lume, which is something that we don't see, right, in most of the other timepieces, right. And the fact that it's involves a very, I would say, a lovable character as well in the form of Moomin makes it a very interesting timepiece for me. So that's my pick for.
And also unusual place to manufacture because Stefan is in Finland. And in fact, all the three pieces are all non-traditional. Right?
Yes.
One in Germany, one in Australia, one in Finland.
Yes.
But Stefan is quite an interesting chap because he makes a lot of things by hand. He's actually very skilled watchmaker, but he doesn't make all the movements himself because sometimes he chooses to collaborate with other people. Yeah, in this case, I don't know if it's his own movement or it's not his own movement.
I don't think so.
Oh, you don't think it's his own movement?
I don't think so.
I mean, watch is rather expensive, right?
Yeah, it's less than 20k US for what you are getting. I think that's of very good value. And I think it's more of the aesthetic element that
And the storytelling with the movie
yes.
and the very long tradition of the movie and these monsters
Yes.
which come out with it.
So the movie is finished, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's something that's
It is sold out.
yes. And of course, there's something of an advisor, dear friend of yours,
Yes,
who given you a very interesting cooking, isn't it?
Yeah, we saw the cufflinks. Actually, he made a cufflink himself using his own lathe. And the cufflink, of course, featured his signature moon face.
Oh wow.
It's a machine out of it.
We look forward to having one anymore. Okay.
Okay, what's your third choice then?
Yes, that will be a little bit more back towards the conventional watch brand, really something called the Christiaan or
Oh,
we have an event with last year.
Yeah.
It's called the Ariadne. Sorry, I don't know my pronunciation. It comes with a 40mm stainless steel case. Also, Baoju 775 complete with a calendar and a moon face as well, which is what Christiaan was all about. Because it's all about the time period and things like that. So it's an entry level. It's about 10,000 US dollars. So you know the calendar is all the way towards the mountain.
Yeah, it's a really expensive watch, and it's a specialty of Christiaan Medical, especially now being in charge, being really the focus and really expert in planetary.
Right, and Emma have to almost go behind another just to pick up that planet thing, right? The top planet, right? So
I don't remember how many, but yeah, many planets.
So now what's unique about this particular watch is that the motor is actually done by a very famous engraver called the singer. Okay, so it reveals a U-shaped pattern along the hand engraved gold-plated sun along the motor. So it's very, very beautifully decorated, although it's just a power shoe. So I think that gives a certain entry level to these independent watchmakers. Yes. Yeah. What about you?
My third choice actually is another interesting independent, quite new, and somebody who's really shaping the world of tourbillons. And here we're talking about Ba111od. Thomas Bayer is a good friend, and he has been very well known for introducing and pushing the boundaries of lowering the cost of entry for Swiss-made tourbillons. What's interesting is that on one side, the piece that I'm talking about that I really, really like is the latest piece that we introduced this year. It's called a Flying Tourbillon with a moon face. It's a really beautiful piece. It comes in at below 10,000 Swiss francs. So it's definitely the cheapest tourbillon, Swiss-made tourbillon in the market. Movement is made by another good friend of ours, which is BCP tourbillons by Moomin. And Oliver assures us that everything in the watch is made with components which are sourced within 2 hours of driving distance from this workshop in industrial form. The only part which is not within 2 hours is made in Iran, which is in Geneva, and that's about 4 hours drive within industrial form. So everything made in Switzerland. In fact, they actually proudly say the movement and the watch is actually in Switzerland and not using components from third parties overseas. And I think for Swiss-made tourbillons, this is definitely the cheapest, the least expensive in the market today. The other competitors are all a little bit more expensive. And let me squeeze in a cheap, because the other one is my fourth choice. That's the Louis Garrard, and that's the Flying Tourbillon, which is also made by Infinity Flying Tourbillon. And this is also extremely beautiful, and I really like it. It also comes within the $20,000 price budget because the base cost that Oliver has proposed to the brands are less expensive, and therefore they're able to offer these watches at this kind of prices.
And what's amazing about the bio is like the Mira. So at this price point for bio, it's so difficult to achieve, for flying tourbillon. Name me another flying tourbillon that is in this price range, right, Peter?
It's unbeatable value, and finish at quite a quality that is not as not what you expect from something of this price range as well.
Right. So here we have all the three choices for each one of us. Tell us what your choices would be, and let's interact and tell us also what you'd like to see next. Whether you'd like to see us remain with the independence and maybe at a different price level, $50,000 US dollars, $100,000 US dollars, or you want to see the super expensive premium type aspirational pieces, or you want us to look at something else. You want us to look at a collection of 3 watches worth $25,000 US, or a collection of small capsule collection of 3 watches which are within $15,000 US dollars, or whatever. Tell us in the comments below, interact with us, and we'll try and make the videos which are suitable for you.
But before we end,
yes,
what are you wearing?
Okay, let's start with
So on my wrist today is actually a preliminary disco volante.
that's another nice independent brand.
Yes. This is a watch that my fiance got for the both of us to share. So the thing that really got our attention was its unusual disco volante case, right, which is something that we don't see it often. And the fact that it's made with a rather reasonable case size and a manual winding movement. So, it ticks all the right boxes, and it's something that, we kind of enjoy.
What movement does it use?
Good question. If I am not wrong, it's outsourced. I can't recall off the top of my head right now.
Put it down.
Yes.
Okay, and it's quite small as well. What's the size again?
I believe it's 38.
38, and it comes up kind of like hidden up.
Yes.
Right?
And
so
the
the strap just comes up from the case.
yes, and the crown is sort of integrated into the case shape as well. So very seamless design.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, what about you, Stanley?
I'm still visited with the Citizen Tesla that I've been wearing since Japan, or even before that, my Europe trip, right? I love it. The super titanium really gets to me because it's super duper light. I love the GPS, wave watch rates. It actually sets the time automatically.
Yeah, you just hold it for a few seconds, and once it gets the satellite signal, you will set it back to the second.
Exactly, right? So it's so beautiful, it's so comfortable. I just cannot get it off. I don't know why. Yeah.
I don't know whether you will set the time in a half hour. You try it and I go to it.
It does actually.
Oh, really?
So you notice between the 9 and there's a 9.5 and 10.
Okay, we'll test it.
Yeah.
We'll test it. We'll do a video.
Let's do that. And what are you wearing?
I'm also wearing a Citizen, and I've been wearing this watch for close to 2 months now. Since I picked it up in Japan during the GDN episode that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Which, incidentally, thank you very much. We've got very, very good viewership of that particular episode. This is the Citizen. It's a quartz movement, but it's solar powered, and it's in super titanium with a very, very hard coating over the titanium. And you can see that. After almost 2 months of wearing daily without any care being taken, there's no scratches. The dial is also very beautiful. The dial is a Japanese washi paper dyed with Japanese nickel. The movement quite accurate, so it runs up to 5 seconds. Active indication of 5 seconds. So there we have it. This is our choice. Let's get talking more, and hopefully you tell us what you want to see next.
Alright guys, have a great day. Cheers.